Pan-Africanism promotes the idea that all people of African descent, whether on the African continent or in the diaspora, are part of a single interconnected community. It's the belief that people of African descent share common interests and should be unified. Historically, this concept often manifested as a political or cultural movement, calling for solidarity among all people of African descent. This solidarity was aimed at uplifting them economically, socially, and politically. The roots of this movement stretch way back into history, nourished by the shared experiences of slavery and colonialism. These shared struggles fostered a sense of common identity and purpose across the globe. Now, in the mid-19th century, some important figures in the United States began to voice these ideas. Martin Delany, for instance, was a prominent figure. He was an American abolitionist, journalist, physician, military officer, and writer who was arguably the first proponent of black nationalism. Delany is credited with the Pan-African slogan of Africa for Africans. Delany strongly believed in black self-reliance. He argued that African Americans couldn't achieve true freedom and equality in America, so he advocated for emigration, encouraging African Americans to consider establishing their own nation, perhaps in Africa or Central America. His work, The Condition, Elevation, Emigration, and Destiny of the Colored People of the United States, laid out these bold propositions for his time. And then there was Alexander Crummell, another key intellectual of this era. He was an Episcopal priest and a scholar who developed concepts of Pan-Africanism while studying at Cambridge University in England. Crummell spent 2 decades in Liberia, an African nation founded by formerly enslaved Americans. He believed in the importance of African civilization and emphasized the role of religion and education in uplifting African peoples. Crummell saw Africa as a place where black people could build a society free from American racism. His experiences and writings significantly contributed to the early discourse on black identity and destiny on the African continent itself, fostering a dialogue. Edward Wilmot Blyden, born in the Danish West Indies, also became a towering figure. He later settled in Liberia and Sierra Leone. Blyden is often called the father of Pan-Africanism. He developed the concept of the African personality, arguing that Africans had a unique culture and contribution to make to the world. Blyden urged people of African descent to embrace their heritage with pride. He fiercely opposed the idea of cultural assimilation into European norms, believing that Africa had a glorious past and a promising future distinct from the West. Later in life, Blyden became involved in Islam and concluded that it was a more African religion than Christianity for African Americans and Americo-Liberians. As the 19th century gave way to the 20th, a new intellectual giant emerged. W.E.B. Du Bois became a central figure in the Pan-African movement. He was a sociologist, historian, and activist who brought a rigorous academic approach to the struggle for black liberation. Du Bois co-founded the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or NAACP, in 1909. His vision, however, extended beyond the borders of the United States. He saw the fight for civil rights in America as connected to the fight against colonialism in Africa and the Caribbean. This global perspective was crucial. Du Bois famously declared a profound truth in his 1903 book, The Souls of Black Folk. He wrote something powerful. The problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. This statement resonated deeply, capturing the pervasive nature of racism and colonialism around the world. It highlighted the racial barrier that divided humanity. Du Bois understood that this color line was not just an American issue, it was a global system of oppression affecting people of African descent everywhere. His insight framed the struggle for decades to come. A key contribution of Du Bois was his organization of several Pan-African congresses. The first of these significant gatherings was held in Paris in 1919. Subsequent congresses took place in London, Brussels, Lisbon, and New York. These meetings brought together black intellectuals, activists, and leaders from Africa, the Americas, and Europe. They aimed to discuss the common problems faced by people of African descent and sought to demand self-determination and an end to colonial rule. These congresses were pivotal in raising international awareness of these critical issues. Du Bois envisioned Pan-Africanism as a movement for political and social equality. He believed in fighting for full citizenship rights for African Americans and championed the cause of independence for African nations. His Pan-Africanism emphasized cultural pride and historical awareness, aiming to reclaim and celebrate the rich heritage of African peoples. Du Bois's intellectual leadership provided a sophisticated ideological framework that guided the movement for many years, inspiring countless individuals across the diaspora and the continent of Africa itself. He tirelessly worked to connect these struggles. Following World War I, another dynamic leader captured the imagination of millions. Garvey, a Jamaican immigrant to the United States, rose to prominence. He founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, or UNIA. The UNIA became one of the largest mass movements of black people in history. Garvey's message was one of black pride, economic self-sufficiency, and racial separatism. He believed that black people worldwide needed to unite to achieve liberation and build their own powerful nations, particularly in Africa. Garvey's UNIA was incredibly influential. It established businesses, including the Black Star Line shipping company, intended to facilitate trade and transportation between black communities globally. It was a symbol of black economic empowerment. Garvey also organized elaborate parades and conventions, showcasing black achievement and fostering a sense of collective identity. His Back to Africa message, though not always literal, inspired many to look towards Africa as a homeland, instilling a powerful sense of racial pride in a people long denigrated. The period from the 1920s through the 1940s saw a vibrant exchange of ideas between African Americans and African intellectuals. Many were studying or working in Europe and America. Figures like C.L.R. James, a Trinidadian historian and writer, became deeply involved. James wrote extensively on black history and revolutionary politics. George Padmore, also from Trinidad, was another key figure. Initially a communist, Padmore later became a leading Pan-Africanist theorist. He worked closely with future African leaders, advising them on strategies for independence. Jomo Kenyatta, who would later become the first president of Kenya, was also part of this milieu. He spent time in London during this period, connecting with other Pan-African thinkers. These intellectuals met, debated, and published together, sharing strategies and developing a common vision for the liberation of Africa. Organizations like the International African Service Bureau, co-founded by Padmore, served as important hubs, facilitating these crucial transatlantic conversations and collaborations, building a network of committed activists and thinkers ready for change. By the late 1940s, a significant shift began to occur within the Pan-African movement. The center of leadership started to move from African Americans and West Indians to Africans on the continent itself. This transition was fueled by the growing anti-colonial movements in Africa. African intellectuals and activists, many of whom had been educated abroad and influenced by Pan-African ideas, returned home, ready to lead their countries to independence. The focus increasingly became the liberation of African nations from European colonial rule, a direct application of Pan-African principles. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, then the Gold Coast, became a pivotal figure in this new phase. Nkrumah had studied in the United States, where he was deeply influenced by the writings of Du Bois and Garvey. He attended the 1945 Pan-African Congress in Manchester, England, notable for the strong presence of African delegates. Nkrumah returned to the Gold Coast and led a powerful independence movement. When Ghana achieved independence in 1957, it was a landmark moment. It was the first sub-Saharan African nation to break free from colonial rule. Nkrumah became a vocal champion of Pan-African unity, believing that the independence of Ghana was meaningless unless it was linked to the total liberation of the African continent. He advocated for a United States of Africa, envisioning a strong, unified continent that could resist neo-colonialism. Pan-Africanism, under leaders like Nkrumah, became a driving force behind decolonization efforts across Africa. The ideals of solidarity and self-determination inspired liberation movements from Kenya to Algeria, fundamentally reshaping the global political map. The legacy of Pan-Africanism continues to resonate today. It has profoundly influenced movements like Afrocentrism, which emphasizes African culture and history in education and identity. Contemporary efforts towards African unity, such as the African Union or AU, also draw inspiration from Pan-African ideals. The AU aims to promote political and economic integration among African states. While the challenges are many, the dream of a united and prosperous Africa, rooted in the early visions of Pan-African pioneers, endures. The echoes of Delaney, Du Bois, Garvey and Nkrumah still call for solidarity.